Hi, I'm Kennedy Curry, and you're listening to the Her Relationship Podcast. I believe that three of the most powerful gifts we can give and receive are communication, relationship, and hope. The journey to a true connection with yourself, your faith, and the people around you starts right now. Hey y'all, what's going on? I hope that y'all are doing well. So I want to say that I am so happy to be back into the flow of connecting with you guys on a weekly basis. It's always refreshing to step away though. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today, but I'm grateful for the rest. I'm grateful for the time to go back to the drawing board and make some connections and really listen to God about where He wants me to take this thing, because this is His podcast, to be real with you. My name might be on it, but this is an extension of what I receive directly from God every week. Whatever might be going on, that's what I try to share with you guys on this platform. So I want to know, how have things been going? Definitely shoot me an email. You guys can reach me at kennedyc@herrelationship.com. Soon, that email address and a lot of other information is going to have to change, y'all, because my last name is about to change in 68 days. 68 days. Can y'all believe that? 68 days until we get married, until me and Martin are married. And I got to say that in itself has been a journey. So he's going to join me in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to try to get him on here so that we can talk to y'all a little bit about what that process has been like, what's been going on for us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of those areas, and how we've been able to find balance, how we've been able to kind of find a flow, and how we're still trying to find a flow. So I'm excited to have him on, and hopefully that'll be something valuable for you guys to listen into if you have any thoughts about what getting prepared for not just a wedding is, but any questions or concerns about what it means to prepare to become one with the person that you're called to be connected to. So I am definitely going to have him on in the next couple of weeks. But this week, we're going to keep the conversation rolling a little bit about the journey of completion. And we're going to continue talking about what it means to really find yourself, specifically this week, and how we want to be found. Right? So I think that it's one thing to find ourselves, but it's another to present ourselves and to be in the position to be found by somebody else. What does that posture look like? How do you get your life right? How do you get your spirit to a place where you want to be found in the way that you are? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I'm excited. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so last week we talked about what it means to be on a journey of completion. And I even challenged you guys to join me on this journey of completion, of getting to know who you are, whose you are. So establishing yourself in a faith in something that is bigger than you, beyond you, and figuring out how all of that comes together to help you have more intentional relationships with the people around you, with other people. So since we laid the foundation for that last week, I thought it would be cool for us to just kind of break down the piece of this puzzle that I feel is most important, or the pieces, I should say, of this puzzle that I feel are most important. And that's our ability to really find who we are and our ability to root ourselves in something beyond who we are. I didn't dive as deep into that as I wanted to last week, but you know what? That's why we have part twos. That's why we have sequels to the first movie that we go to see. It's because there was something else in that story that maybe we didn't get that deep into. And so today, as we're kind of breaking this down, we can call this Journey of Completion Part 2, whatever we end up putting the title of this as. That's what my mission is today, is to just share with you guys some of the things that I've been hearing and I've been receiving in my prayer time, in my reading, my personal development, just being on this journey, the things that I'm learning. I want to share those with y'all. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is just how to find yourself. So I've shared with you guys different aspects of my journey before, but today I'll get even a little bit more deep with you to share really how much of a journey this has been and continues to be. So I usually start talking to you guys about how it was for me. And I may not have ever gone back this far, but thinking about how my life was in even middle school. So middle school is that season for, I feel like, a lot of us where we get to a place and we don't necessarily know all of who we are. We're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out what our flow is, how we like to dress, who we like to hang out with, what we're interested in, all that stuff, right? So I was definitely in a season then where I was doing all those things and I did not know who I was, nor did I feel confident in who I tried to be or who I was presenting myself to be. And so a lot of that spilled over into high school for me. When I got to high school, I remember wanting so badly to be a part of a group, be a part of a team, because at that time I was playing sports. So it was volleyball and basketball. So wanting to be a part of something beyond myself, wanting to fit in, wanting to be recognized as a part of the team or a part of the squad, whatever it was. And when I think about that season, so middle school, high school, and even really college, y'all hear me talk about college all the time because listen, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. College still had pieces of that longing for wanting to be a part, longing for acceptance, the desire to find confidence. And I realized that in middle school and high school and in college, even though I was doing it differently, I was on this journey of not completion, but I was on this journey of comparison. So the journey of comparison and how that is different in my eyes is the journey of completion is what we talked about last week. So we know who we are. We have an established faith. We believe in something bigger than us, and we're intentional about the people around us. So if that's the journey of completion, the journey of comparison for me is really doing a lot of things that go against that mindset, that go against that process. So I was in a season where I wasn't trying to find who I was. I was trying to find who I was trying to find who I was, but I was looking for who I was in what other people thought I should be. I was looking for the definition of who Kennedy Curry was and how my friends would describe me and how much attention I would get from my friends or from people that I liked or was interested in. I was looking for who I was from the outside, externally, instead of figuring out who am I from the inside out. I was going backwards in middle school, high school, and in college. I did it differently. It showed up in different ways, but all in the same, I was on this journey of comparison, comparing myself to who I was next to instead of figuring out who I was and allowing the circle, the people around me to be a reflection of who I was and where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, right? So any of those kinds of things I feel are what belong in our circle, but I was allowing the circle to dictate who I was. I was allowing the circle to paint a picture or to write the story of who Kennedy was. And that's not the journey that I want you guys to be on. I don't want you guys to go down that path of trying to find value, trying to find your self-esteem, trying to find your confidence in someone else's opinion or even their perception of who you are. Because as men and women, regardless of how someone identifies as men and women, as creatures that God has created, as human beings, it boils down to us having a good understanding of who we are. According to us, this goes back to something that some of you guys may have heard of before, but it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, something that you might have heard before. This talks about just different levels of needs going from basic needs to this point of self-actualization, this point of recognizing and being fulfilled in who we are. And so thinking about even that process of meeting our basic needs to getting all the way to a fulfilled place, I don't believe that any type of fulfillment or self-actualization will ever come from the outside. It has to come from the inside. It has to come from what our basic needs are. So our need to survive, our need to connect, our need for safety, any of these kinds of things that allow us to be I believe that the way that we move on up that spectrum, the way that we really get to know each other or get to know ourselves, is by really getting an idea of who we are from the inside. So that's one of the first things that I've learned along this journey, is that a journey of completion is way different than a journey of comparison. Comparing who I was and how I dressed and how my eyebrows were arched versus somebody else's eyebrows were arched. Y'all, when I tell you it was so many little surface things that even to this day, I still have to remind myself that, sis, you are not what anybody said you were back in middle school. You are who God says you are. And that's the second piece of this, is not just knowing who you are, loving yourself. Self-care and self-love is a piece of this puzzle. But the second component, even more importantly, would be knowing who you are in God's eyes. Just straight up knowing who you are in God's eyes, because even when we get to this place of trying to find who we are, trying to discover ourselves, care for ourselves, I think we have to be really careful there, because we can get to a place where we feel as though our independence is all the security that we need. We get to a place where we feel like our self-care and our self-love is enough, that is sufficient for what it is that we need to really get to a place of being fulfilled, to find purpose, whatever it is that you're seeking, to be well, right? Having wellness at the top of your list. Whatever that arrangement is, it comes back to aligning who we are with where we've come from and why we're here. And that's where I believe faith comes in. So having a spiritual connection and an anchor is the next piece that I've learned along the journey of completion. It's absolutely vital. It's necessary. And where this is different, since I'm making some contrast points, so journey of completion and journey of comparison, two different things on that end. When I'm talking about getting ourselves anchored and rooted on the spiritual side, or in our faith, what I mean is not just viewing this as an opportunity to walk in nature and be one with nature. That's great. And I still invite all of us to do things like that, because it's healthy. It's good for your mind. It's good for your spirit. I challenge you to go beyond taking walks in nature to connect spiritually. I invite you to go beyond connecting or even meditating. I was just listening to a Bible study video that a good friend of mine did. Shout out to you, Mariah girl. And she talked about meditation and yoga as two things that are really, really popular right now. Two things that a lot of us may just do. We might participate in, we might practice it. And depending upon our intention, we have to be super, super mindful of what it is that we are grounding ourselves in, what it is that we're really trying to connect to. And I don't want to get too deep into that, because she already delivered that beautiful message. So if you're interested, check out Harvest City Church. You can see it. And I think the video it's one of our Bible study videos. That's my church, by the way. Come on. And it's one of the videos that we did for Bible study. And I think this was last week. So, check out YouTube, go back a couple of weeks, and you will see that is from missionary Mariah Claiborne. Okay, so check her out. But why I wanted to pull that in is because on the spiritual side, I've gotten so many questions and I have so many conversations, or I have over the course of this journey for myself. And one thing that I am learning is that this journey to ground yourself or to establish your faith is a decision. It's a daily decision. This is not just something that we can rely on our childhood for. We can't rely on growing up in church. We can't rely on our parents taking us to mass. Whatever your story might have been, maybe you didn't grow up going to anybody's church or doing anything spiritually, but the invitation, and I feel like what is absolutely necessary to this journey of completion, is really not just finding who you are, because you are incredible, but why are you here? Why were you created? And who created you? Like, the more familiar we can become with our creator, God, the more familiar we become with ourselves. It's just like the more we want to understand how our phone works, we might go and study Apple's products. We might go to the manufacturing manual. We might find a way to study and get into the mind of Steve Jobs, any of these individuals that are connected to the success that we've seen with a particular product or something we use on a regular basis. If we're hungry, if we desire to learn more information about the product or the creation, typically we're going back to some sort of manual. We're going back to the person who created it. And the manual is the mind of the person that created it. And so for me, my manual and what's helped me really, really establish myself in this journey of completion and really establish my faith, you guys, has been taking time to go back and familiarize myself and dive deep into the word, the Bible. For me, the Bible is my manual. When I go to the Bible, I'm able to receive just so many ideas, so much insight, so much revelation, because I recognize that, man, this is the mind of the God who created me. And this is what I believe. The God that created me and everything that there is. This is literally an illustration, or this is a book of his words about who I am, his words about who we are as people. And so the more familiar I become with that, the more in tune I get with what I read in the Bible, the more time I spend reading the Bible, as opposed to just the self-help books and the personal development opportunities. I'm not knocking any of that. Y'all have heard me talk so much on this podcast about personal development, but I would be remiss if I did not talk about how important it is, whatever it is that you choose to establish, whatever practice you choose to establish on the faith side of things. My recommendation is taking some time to get familiar with who created you and why you're here. The more familiar we become with that, the more we're able to really even understand who we are, because we are the creation. I want to know more about the creator. I want to know more about how in the world he thinks about me. How God thinks about me is what I spend time thinking about. When I read the Bible, when I pray, when I spend any of this time trying to really strengthen my relationship spiritually and strengthen my faith, that's what I practice. That's what I do. And it's not about religion. It's about relationship. I want to make that really clear, because I've heard those words get tangled up a lot. So it's not a religious thing for me. It's not a matter of me having perfect attendance at my church, although I love being at my church because I get to be around people who align with who I am and what I believe. So that's where the community or having a church family comes in. And we might frequent the church on the same day out of the week. That's the religious part of it, is showing up maybe on the same day out of the week and doing some things the same. But I will say that what separates religion from relationship is simply the word relationship. So religion is something that we practice. It becomes routine. It's something that we do, right? It's our regimen. But a relationship, if we're thinking about that with the people that we love, our family members, that's something that you've got to nurture. You know what I mean? That's something that you've really got to sit back and think about how you are going to approach. So my relationship with Martin, for example, not necessarily comparing that to my relationship with God, but at the same time I am, because this man is about to be my husband. And what we both believe is that our relationship should be a reflection of our relationship spiritually with God. It absolutely should be a reflection. It should be a mirror of our heart for God and God's heart for us. That should be reflected in our marriage and in our relationship. So that's what separates religion or being religious from someone that has a relationship with God. So that's the second piece of the puzzle for me. Not just knowing who you are, but knowing whose you are. You're the creation. So what do you know about your creator? Who do you look to when all of your sources have been tapped out? Who do you look to when things are going south, when you don't know what in the world is going on in your life, in your mind, in your family, whatever it is? Who is your source? Who's the source that you're plugging into in those moments, in those times? Because I know for a fact that this journey of completion that we talked about last week, and even that we're talking about now, there would be no completion for me without having a source that I can tap into, that I can plug into literally. So when I go to pray, that's me plugging into my source. When I go to read the Bible, that's me plugging into my source. When I do things like right now, talking about how I love God or talking about why I believe and I value my relationship with God, that's also me tapping into my source. So that's me strengthening that relationship. I want you guys to just think about it, just like if you desire a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, think about what it looks like to have a relationship with someone that you don't communicate with. What does a relationship really feel like when you don't spend time with a person, when you don't know what's happening in a person's life, when you don't know how a person thinks and what bothers them and what excites them? That relationship is looking a little shaky. That relationship is looking a little sketch. Okay. So it's the same thing. And it's the same way that I really think about having a relationship with God. So those are the differences for me when it comes to religion and relationship, and why I value and why I invite you guys to make that an important part, a second piece of the puzzle. If not a first piece, I would say start there. Start with figuring out where you came from, not just your family tree, but literally talking about, okay, now that I have a better idea of who I am, what am I connected to? What is my source? What am I believing in that is beyond who I am? Because I'm only a person. I'm only a woman. I'm only Kennedy Curry. But what is it about me that is connected to something greater? How can I connect to a power or a source that is greater than myself? So that's where that comes in. I can tell you guys this journey of preparing to be a wife. And like I said, there are 68 days before Martin and I say I do, before we make that promise, before we invite again God into our lives and into our union. There's 68 days before we do that. And along this journey, we have continually been talking about how important it is to just completely strip ourselves of our old ways of thinking. So the things that I told you that I used to do to find confidence, right? The journey of me going through middle school, high school, and college, and even sometimes things that try to resurface now. I don't find confidence from the outside in. I find it from the inside out. And the inside of me, that's the part that's connected or in relationship with God, with my faith. So that's where I pull any strength that some of you guys have been sweet enough to recognize in me. That's where I pull the strength from. It's from that faith foundation. That's where I pull the wisdom from. So me being an old lady, like some of my friends describe me as, me being the grandma or the mom of my group, that wisdom, something that I value. And that's something that, again, comes from my faith foundation, my relationship with God. So this is what I want to leave y'all with. So, we've probably heard this before. It's not about what we know, but it's about who we know. So we can be as educated as we want to be about our own gifts, our own talents, our own desires. We can have that list down to a T. We can know what it is that we value in ourselves. We can know just everything about who we are. But just like what that saying says, it's not about what we know, it's about who we know. That's where it comes back to why it's so important for you to know who you are. Why it's so important for you to know God. Why it's so important for you to know about something that you can establish faith in that is beyond you. That's why it's so important to know people that will hold you accountable to the things that you desire, that will hold you accountable to what is right, what is wrong, what is the truth, and what is your truth. Come on, because there's a difference. So I am in this season where I need people around me that are going to hold me accountable to the relationship work that I'm doing on a regular basis. So if I'm trying to establish a better relationship with myself, I need to be around people who know who they are. It does me no justice, and it does them no justice if we're on this journey of trying to be complete, this journey of completion. If I'm really trying to establish a healthy relationship and a perception of who I am as a woman, about to be a wife, so many transitions that are happening. This is a season where it's imperative for my surroundings to be right, for my relationships with myself, with God, and with the people around me to be right, to be intentional. And so this is why this is important, is because if we don't know who we are, if we don't know whose we are, the who aspect, the what we're called to do, the why we're called to do it, the where we're supposed to go, all of the other 5 W's and the sometimes whys, all of those things do not become clear until we get to a place where we know who we are. It's about who we know. Do you know yourself? Do you know God? And does he know you? Does God know you? Yes, he does. He knows you better than anybody on the planet. And I know from experience, even when I did not think that God would even care to want to talk to me anymore or be associated, because I was just out here wilding. Even at that point, God still knew everything. He still knows everything. So I believe that for you. So the question is, do you know God? Have you taken the time to get to know God? Because maybe there are some other people around you, or maybe there have been some tough instances that have just kind of pulled you away from wanting to get to know God or anything about what faith feels like. I'm just here to let you know that without that piece of this puzzle, there is no way that I would still be on this journey of completion. There was no way that I would even have started to begin this journey of completion without my faith, without my relationship with God. So it all boils down to that, knowing who you are, but even more importantly, knowing who created you. You're the creation, so who is the creator? Knowing those aspects, those are the things that allow us to not just find ourselves, but to be found in the right position, to be found and to be discovered in a way that we would be proud of. So that's the question that I'm going to leave you guys with. I know that I said I was going to leave you guys a couple minutes ago, but that's what I want to leave you guys with. How do you want to be found? When I say found, for any of my ladies out there that are waiting on the right relationship or the right person to spend life with, to start dating, whatever it is, or maybe even waiting on the right position. This could be for men, women, whatever it is that you're waiting on. How do you want to be found? It's not necessarily about how you find someone, what it is that they're doing, where they're working, but it's about how you want to be found. What's the position that you want to be in? Because that's the position that you ought to be practicing now. However you want to be found should be reflected in how you are serving now, how you're interacting with people now, how you're cleaning your house now. How do you want to be found? So that's going to be something that we talk about next time. And like I shared, Martin will be on the podcast and we'll be able to talk from both of our perspectives. So for my fellas that are tuned in, you'll get his perspective and you'll also hear mine. Hello. So we'll talk a little bit about what this journey has been for both of us and how now our journeys are colliding and collapsing into one, which is really exciting. So how do you want to be found? That's the question. That's the question that I've got for y'all to answer this week, to reflect on this week. So ponder on that, let it marinate. I hope that y'all have an awesome rest of your week. We'll keep you posted. We'll let you know. Again, 68 days, you guys. I'm so excited to go on this journey with y'all. And yeah, hopefully I can get my fiance on here because he definitely left me out here to dry today, but that's all right. We'll get him on. I hope y'all have an awesome week. Much love. Stay blessed.